Here we go. All right, folks, we've got Kirk Dixon and I'm Donna DeBonis. So we have this really crazy question of, you know, what have you been doing the past 40 years? I mean, think about it. 40 years? What the heck?
Yeah, it's been a long time. It was interesting. I worked construction to put myself through school, and I hated working construction because it was just such a, I don't know, a negative, atmosphere. Everybody's
Mhm.
catcalling everybody and all that stuff. And I said, boy, I
Oh,
couldn't
that's
stand it.
insane. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I couldn't stand to do this for a long time. And that was one of the things with veterinary medicine. I said, you know what? I mean, to me, it's something that I believe I can do for 40 years and be happy. And it kind of worked out that way. At year 40, I'm sort of out of the business. So anyway.
Right, I know, and I think we all had that hope on our horizon. So, what was the first thing that you did when you had CSU in your rear view mirror? Did you have like a job lined up, or did you have like you're still doing interviews, or what? What was
Well,
your deal?
I was married and I had one child already and I had nobody to finance me. So it was, I need a job, for the next week after graduating. So for me, we had that lottery, of who could do the what semesters. And fortunately, I won that one and was able to graduate in January. So
I did
I was,
too.
so yeah, I
I
was
did
out,
too. Yeah.
at Christmas break, I was out interviewing, for a job. So my concept was it seemed like the average scenario around Colorado was, $18,000 a year, work 5.5 days. And we had, 137 graduates, of which half of those were Colorado residents. So I was like, I don't really want to, you know, be competing for all this. I said, and I've lived in Colorado my whole life. So, I'm open for a change. And so my
Hmm.
in-laws had retired from the Air Force and had moved to New Jersey. And there was a boatload of jobs in New Jersey and they don't have a vet school. And I wanted my kids to be able to know their grandparents because
Hmm.
I never knew my grandparents. And so I thought, hey, let's go give it a try. And so
And travel across the country. Did you load up vehicles and like that was it? You drove, right?
that was it. And it's
Mhm.
interesting. The drive out there was really scary. We were going out I-70,
Mhm.
in January, and so
Weather.
we got to Kansas, and the I-70 was closed because of a snowstorm. And so we had to spend the night in a hotel. The next day we were going, and we had this little box, we had this box truck and pulling my car behind it. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden we got this side wind that hit the side of our moving van like a sail. And literally it's just sliding off the road to the right. And I'm like going, oh my goodness, there's absolutely nothing I can do here. It's just pushing me sideways. And literally right at the edge of the road, we caught a little dry patch or whatever. And
Mhm.
I was able to get back on. It was like, oh my goodness,
Oh,
I could have
that would
lost
have been,
everything and be dead.
yeah,
So
that would have been a
anyway,
tragedy. Oh my gosh.
so
Yeah.
made it
Oh
out
wow.
there. And I was in the central part of New Jersey, and it was interesting because when I was interviewing, the it was similar jobs out there. They were all, most of them were offering like $18,000 a year. Again there, and there was this one guy who was offering 30,000, and I'm like, there's got to be a catch to this because it's
There's,
so much
yeah.
more. I mean, what am I doing? Criminal things or whatever. So I took this job that was 18,000 a year, but I only worked 3.5 days a week. And I thought, this is going to be great. I have all this time for family, and we'll do all this stuff. And then the reality is that on my days off, we just sat and looked at each other and said, we can't pay the bills. My school loans are going to be coming up in a few months and I won't be able to pay them. So I went and I got the one guy, he gave me a raise of, a couple thousand. I wanted to moonlight in New York City, and
Great
he would,
idea. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they were making good money and he wouldn't let me. He's like, no, it'll exhaust you or whatever. So I'm like, okay. So then I went and called up the guy who'd offered me 30,000 and said, hey, have you found anybody yet? And he said, no. So I went and switched jobs, 4 months in there. And then I was there for a year. And one of the reasons I went there was because he was going to sell the practice. And so I said, so when can that happen? Because that's what I wanted, was my own practice. And he said, well, I'll sell you half in 5 years and another half in 10 years, maybe. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm out of here, you know? So then I took another job. This was in the New York metropolitan area of New Jersey. And,
Uh-huh.
and so that one I was there, and that one I was supposed to get, they were going to open another practice, and I was
Hmm.
going to get sweat equity of 50% of that practice. So I said, yes, let's do this.
Oh, that's
And
a deal. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
and so, but then of course, and the was as the best part of that one, other than that option, was that on emergencies, we rotate. The guy owned 5 practices, of which it covered probably about 3 or 4 or 5 million people. And so,
Mhm.
so as a result, you know, when we were covering emergencies on a weekend, literally, you know, we were open Saturday, but like on Sunday, when the first emergency call came in, I just go in, it was like running office hours. So, you
Uh-huh.
know, it was really good because over a year I was able to save, you know, $25,000. And then I had some seed money. So I wanted to buy my own practice. I went all around New Jersey, couldn't make anything work. And so then I was looking in JAVMA,
Yeah.
and there
Good
was
old
practice for
JAVMA.
sale
Sure.
in the Carolinas. And so I thought, never been to the Carolinas, so said, hey, what the heck? Let's go take a look. So there was 5 practices we looked at. You know, it's kind of ironic. The quote mountain house that I have now ended up being about 10 miles away from one of the practices that I didn't want. And then anyway, there was one in Asheville, which is in the mountains of North Carolina, and then one
Beautiful.
Hilton Head, which, you know, is the beach, and
Hmm.
that I'd never been to before. And so we were trying to decide between them. The mountain one was a standalone practice, you know, kind of traditional. And then the Hilton Head one was you lived above the practice. It had a house, apartment, whatever you want to say above it. And, you know, so we were like going, that's going to be more family oriented, you know, mountains, beach, you know. Anyway, we ended up the Asheville one, because we delayed, they sold to somebody else. So he said, well, I guess the decision's made for us. So we went to Hilton Head, and so you know, that was a little interesting in that, you know, I proposed a contract and said it was all based upon getting financing, I think at prime plus one, because back then, you know, prime was like 6-7%, you know. And so
Hmm.
so as a result, you know, or maybe it was more than that, I think it was maybe like 10 or 11%. And so everybody said, oh yeah, no problems. Well, only one bank would loan me the money, and it was at prime plus 3 floating daily. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there's no way that I'm going to be able to survive. So I canceled the contract, which I was entitled to do. Only the guy kept my money. He wouldn't give me my deposit money back. And so I had no other money. I thought, oh my goodness, here I am, a Yankee, and I'm going to have to go down in a Southern court and try to get I said, I'm never going to do it. And I thought, this is disaster. And the most amazing thing happened is the vice president of the bank that was loaning me the money. It was a local bank, and he said, "You need to come down anyway. We want to meet you. So just give." So he come down, and I meet him, and here's the vice president of the bank, and he goes, "Look," I told him all my concerns. He said, "Look, what's the worst thing that can happen? You got to start over." So he's loaning me money. And then they're like saying, well, hey, if you go broke, you know, you just start over. So never heard anything like that ever again. But anyway, I
Hmm.
took that loan, and, you know, things worked out good. I was able to refinance, and things grew. And so
Oh,
it
good.
was
So you,
okay.
yeah.
So,
Hmm.
you know, and then I basically been that practice, been there for 37 years. And
Mm.
then about 12, 13 years after uh, that practice, a friend of mine that had a practice about 6 miles away, he wanted to go on a mission. And so I bought his practice. And then about 10 years later, I opened another practice. And anyway, it got to be more than what I wanted to do. And so
That's a lot.
yeah, it is. And very often what happened is, you know, I just felt that so many of the younger vets were prima donnas, you know, they just want everybody to do everything for them. And I was, you know, that one of my means of success was I wasn't in a big demographic area where I could build this huge practice like in Atlanta, you know.
Right.
But how I managed to find success is, you know, I lowered my overhead. So, I mean, I wore 20 different hats. I'm the accountant, I'm the bookkeeper. When I first started, I was the weekend kennel boy.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
my kids, the first time we had the first holiday Thanksgiving after I sold off my practice, we're sitting around and it's like something's missing, and we all looked at each other. It's like, oh, we don't have to go to the clinic to walk dogs.
so exactly, but covered emergency, 365 days a year, but it was nice because I lived above the clinic, so it wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
I
that wasn't bad.
So that
Yeah.
worked out. And so anyway, and then I just had problems finding help, because people didn't want to work, and I didn't want to pay them all the money that I had in profit just to have extra hands. So
So you
I
had
ended
your
up,
kids work, right?
well,
You,
they worked well, my girls, both the girls, they worked for me. They were like, kennel help, and the oldest one worked her way up. She was an office manager, and she was determined. We all have these sayings like our parents would tell us that, whatever. Well, my saying was, I was going, if you don't want to be flipping hamburgers for the rest of your life, you need to get an education. And the oldest one, qualified for all these gifted programs and refused to do anything. She took cosmetology in high school so she wouldn't have to take a foreign language, and she just tried to cruise. Anyway, she got out of school and she was an office manager, and she's at the top of the pay scale per se. And she barely made ends meet. So it's like, if you want to be better than that, you got to go to school. So she went to school and became a veterinarian, and then but
oh
she'd
my
had a
God, what was that like? You must have been so proud. That's so
well,
awesome.
the
Mhm.
concept there was she wanted to be a plastic surgeon, and my other daughter wanted to be a pediatrician, but both of them got pregnant in high school. The oldest one claimed I never had the talks with her. I'm like, oh, you are so lying. And so the younger one, it was like every day driving her to school, we'd have pop quizzes. Are you supposed to be having sex? No. But if you're going to have sex, what are you going to do? You're going to have protection. Why? So you don't get diseases, so you don't get pregnant. We'd have all this, and she got pregnant even earlier. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So they both had teenage pregnancy. So, but when they went to school, they were deciding what they were going to do, for graduate school. I said, look, here's the problem: is that if the oldest one, if she goes to be a plastic surgeon, by the
Yeah.
time you're residency and you are, working 85 hours a week, your son's going to be, in his teenage years. And that's not a very good time to never be around, and same with the other daughters. So I never encouraged them to be a veterinarian, but then both of them decided to go to vet school. So, because they didn't have to do a residency or whatever. But
Oh yeah,
so
it is great. You can get through nowadays. They're doing dual degrees for masters. They're going right into getting board certified. It's a big deal now to go for those advancements. But what about your girls then? Did they end up going to which vet school did they go to?
so South Carolina does have a vet school, so their contract states are Georgia and Mississippi State. So my oldest daughter, she got in both, and she decided to go to Mississippi State because
Oh,
she just liked their program there. They got into clinics earlier, like with us, it
mhm.
was what junior year was half day clinics, half day class, and then senior year, was all day clinics, and they were full day clinics, I think, as juniors. So she liked that better. So
Mhm.
she went there. Then my younger daughter, she got married, and her husband was in the military, and they were stationed in North Carolina, and so she went to NC State. So
Mhm.
that's she stayed up in Raleigh. She's a mixed animal practitioner. So I was not going to do large animals, so I was kind of out of the running on that one. And then
Yeah.
the oldest one, her husband wanted to live in the upstate, and so they moved up here. So anyway, so
Mhm.
none of them really ever worked for me.
Oh, interesting. I would have thought, that there were a couple of kids in our class whose dads were veterinarians, and they went back and worked in their clinics. And
Right.
over here we have one person in Oak Harbor whose daughter went to vet school, and she came back and worked in the clinic over here for him. So yeah, my son had talked about he wanted to follow me into vet school, and when I was deployed to Afghanistan, I was over at the Army recruiter's office when I got back, and as a reservist, you're encouraged to do reserve duty training on weekends. At that point, we're allowed to go in recruiter's office and help them. At any rate, he says, "Oh yeah, I know about you, ma'am. Your son been in here quite a lot." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, did he sign anything?" you know, and he's like, "No, he didn't sign anything." And I said to my son, I go, "Hey, bud, you can go ahead and go into vet school. I'll help you if you want to do that. But veterinary medicine's a harsh mistress. You have to really love it a lot." And then he's like, "Well, yeah, I do love animals, but then we found out he was really good at diagnostics for other things, like anything. He could take things apart and put them back together. It's like, oh my God, this is incredible." So he's in mechanical engineering at this point.
Well,
So
that the
that's,
yeah,
yeah.
the hilarious part on that one is both my daughters, they like if I did enucleation, one daughter would put it in formalin and be sitting on her dresser. She just loved all the everything. But it was so hilarious because if we were at the dinner table and we'd be talking about whatever, and if you said the word diarrhea or something of that nature, the next thing is my youngest son, he'd be like running off to throw up type of thing. So I'm like going, well, medicine isn't in his future, that's for sure. And he's a mechanical engineer. So,
Yeah.
yeah, he always loved, I loved when he was in the household because I never put together any Christmas presents or anything like that. I always just handed everything to him and said, hey, put this together for me. So,
Fantastic. Oh yeah, when mine was in high school, he was taking automotive mechanics, and I bought him $1,000 worth of tools, and I've never regretted it. He's fixing things all the time. Very rarely is there something I have to bring in and get fixed, but yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, how wonderful. It's incredible, I tell you. That it sounds like you're proud to have your daughters follow in veterinary medicine, and it's interesting that they ended up elsewhere and not with you. But on the other hand, people are going to live where they want to live, and I could see how that would play out, since clearly you're enjoying living in the beautiful weather, and you're in South Carolina, right?
correct. Yeah. So the
And
practice
that's
was
not a fake background, folks. That's the real thing.
that is not a fake background. That's the real thing. This is my I bought this house. So my practices are on Hilton Head, which would be the beach.
Mm.
And so it's a an island 6 miles by 12 miles. It gets the second most visitors on the East Coast, other than Disney World. It's second largest barrier island, other than Long Island in New York. But so a lot of visitors, but it was kind of a small town, type feel, and that was nice. And then I'd bought some property in the upstate, and the house is a shell. I mean, it had roughed in plumbing and electric, but that was it, just subfloors and drywall. And so I've been finishing it, for 20 years now. And so I
Oh my
still got
God.
I still got a boatload of projects. I've got a barn that's over. Oops. Uh-oh.
Ooh, that's a nice looking barn.
What did
Wow.
I do? So I uh, I
Yeah.
built that 100% myself. So I've got to
Beautiful.
finish that. I've planted an orchard that's sort of behind me in front of the trees. So anyway, this is in the country, and I enjoy this, but it's nice to also to be able to kept the apartment above the clinic there, so we go there and enjoy the water and the beach and that type of thing. So hopefully I sort of have the best of both worlds. So
Oh gosh, it sure
I've been
sounds
blessed.
like it. Yeah, what did you plant for your orchard?
We've got four peach. Well, I actually have a peach orchard to next to our property over here, but planted four peach trees, three cherry trees, four apple trees, two walnut, two pecan, a plum tree, and three cherry. I don't know if I three cherry trees. So then we have some various. We have blueberries, blackberry, raspberries, wild blackberries. So anyway, so we'll see. We'll see.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Yeah, well, it's true what they say, the best time to have planted a tree was, 20 years ago.
Yeah,
So
sure.
good on you for getting that going. That's got to be a good feeling when you start getting them to produce. So I definitely, yeah, I definitely envy you on that one, boy. So what do you do now as for fun? You're completely retired, aren't you?
Yeah, I keep struggling with this. I keep thinking I'm going to do some relief work, but the problem is I don't want to have to do everything everybody else's way, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's what you got to do if you're doing that. And so I don't know. I keep telling myself I'm not retired, but I don't kind of foresee myself doing it. But yeah, so I retired. Well, I've got a lifetime of projects. I mean, I've got more projects than I'll ever finish. So I'm just literally each day working on trying to, complete some of these things. And I do enjoy that a
Yeah.
lot. So.
And that there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, you put in a lot of time with veterinary medicine, and then you achieved that that golden ring where you sold your practice or practices, I should say. And that's fantastic. That was what they told us, a bajillion years ago. Sell your practice, that's your retirement, enjoy it. There's a lot of people who are kicking back and hunting, fishing, hiking. They're golfing. People are talking about grandkids. Oh my gosh, people are posting about that. And yeah, but it's hard in some ways to give up your identity as a veterinarian. Wouldn't you say that's like a little part of it too?
Yeah, I loved helping people and animals. The thing, is that every day, a lot of professions, legal professions and stuff like that, there's nothing but, everything is contested. There's a lot of nasty, dirty stuff going on and all that stuff. And the thing I like is that, every day was helping, people and animals. And so, that made me feel good. And so I missed that part. I missed the fact that every day was different. I mean, that's
Oh
probably one
yeah.
of the things I love about veterinary medicine was every day was different. You never knew what you were going to get.
Hmm.
And so I miss those, but the problem is people have gotten crazier, and the state boards, 40% of people are getting out of practice because of the state boards. And I ran into a thing where a competitor, this was about a year and a half ago, a competitor, I'd done a dental on a cat and extracted the teeth, and it had horrible resorptive lesions in the whole mouth, and it was a young cat. And I told the woman, I said, look, I said, this cat's going to eventually end up needing all of its teeth pulled. So you can either go, we'll send you somewhere and they'll pull all the teeth at once. It's going to be horrifically expensive and whatever, or we can kind of just, approach, the worst ones and chip away over time and do it that way. And so she elected that. And so I extracted some teeth and went home and I guess I'd given it convenia and I'm not a real fan of that, but anyway, so went home and wasn't feeling good about 3 days later, and she didn't do anything for another day or two, and came home from work, and the cat was real febrile, and so she called the practice. Of course, it was 5 minutes before closing, and I was off, or I was at the other office, and my associate didn't call her back. And so
Oh,
she called a competitor. And then, of course, they decided to go down the list. They decided that I'd given the cat herpes, because it was near other cats and blah, blah, blah. And so they ended up running up an $8,000 bill on this person. And and so of course told them that I was the cause of all this. So they filed a complaint and I fought it. And so it turned out that the other veterinarian had actually run every test possible, every viral test. It was negative for everything, was negative for herpes, but they still diagnosed it with that. They had no history of any of the symptoms of herpes. So anyway,
right.
they filed complaint. So the competitor lied in her thing. I had her dead to rights. I filed a complaint against her. They did nothing against her. And then they finally I fought off all the other charges, but they convicted me of two things. They convicted me of having a cat within 5 feet of another cat because I could have given it something. And what was the other thing?
Oh,
Some other thing. It was another that could have happened, and nothing did happen. And so,
right.
I mean, it was a slap. I appealed it. Of course, they have all these precedents of they don't have to be right, don't have to be justified. They can do whatever they want to do, and so they fined me, and that was it. Of course, put something on the website. But then
Yeah.
it's like I go the next time this happens because they were ticked off because I had called them to the carpet over another thing previously that they did wrong. And so I'm like, so I'm on their radar. The next time they go after me, then they can suspend me. If they suspend me, then I'm toasted. And that just really started my thing going, you know what? I just need to
Mm,
get out. I'm done with this. So
yeah.
anyway, it's just sad. It's sad
Yeah.
that we have to deal with all of these factors, and
Yeah. I can't,
corporate.
I feel in some ways that as veterinarians, in a way, they betrayed you because they were looking for just something to get you for that you didn't even really do. I mean, what that is
Right.
just bizarre.
And
So
then
that'd be hard to swallow. I hear you.
and then the problem is what happens is a lot of these young people, there's been things I've been doing for 40 years that work fine, whether it's a DES for incontinence or just
Sure.
all kinds of
Uh-huh.
various things that work fine. And then what's happening is that in school their professors saying, oh, you don't ever do this is horrific. And it's like, no, it's not. It's like for
Yeah.
me here, I have never used anti-venom in my career because our poisonous snakes are copperheads, and the anti-venom is not necessarily cross reactive. And I'd always just blast them with steroids and they do
Right.
perfectly fine. But now it's like, if you don't do anti-venom because they've been told you have to do anti-venom, so you either got to fall in and do everything their way, or they say you're incompetent, and it's just
Or
really
that,
sad.
yeah, or you're not doing a standard of care that
Right,
they have
exactly.
decided is the new standard of care. So yeah, no, yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, and at the, and I think that in some ways that's part of why, veterinarians struggle in general, with veterinary medicine. I'm on, a Facebook group, of veterinarians there, and they tell these stories all the time, every day, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, and they're on there trying to say, like, what do I do? Am I going to get sued? Am I going to lose my license? And I mean, it's overwhelming, and the veterinary profession doesn't need that crap. I mean, it's uncalled for. I think the bottom line is that people, aside from, the standard of care issue, I think this thing that's going on now with clients is really the what breaks us in the end, because they feel that they could do whatever they want and blast people on social media. Have you seen it yet where somebody complains about a practice or a vet, and they actually had not gone there? It's like, have you seen
Yeah.
that one?
Oh, I've had that happen to me where they go in this on the 1 star review, which then it
Yeah,
takes like 45 stars to
right.
overcome that. And
Yeah,
so the 1 star review was, I called on a Saturday afternoon. I called my vet and they were closed. And I called the next vet and they told me that they wouldn't see the animal or whatever. Anyway, I called these people, and a Dr. Hunt, my associate, he called me back and told me that it wasn't necessarily an emergency or whatever, blah blah blah. And then she just trashes us. And it's like, we're not even your veterinarian. It's all this stuff. It wasn't serious, and you're trashing me, and they let it stand. So,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just
Social
crazy.
media is so scary. I mean, I actually took, like a year-long certification in digital media marketing because I really wanted to get a handle on that. I knew I was still going to be doing something out in the world, and however that was, I wanted to just mentally feel prepared. But the AVMA liability now includes something that will help you meet those kinds of negative ratings. And that's insane if you think about it. Like, really, my liability, I'm paying for liability to help. What a crazy world is
It
basically what
is.
I'm saying.
It,
And when I started out, I was doing house calls about 12, 13 years. And in fact, my son would come with me. He was a good little helper. And people would give me presents. They'd be like, "Oh, here's, a dozen eggs," or just what have you. It was amazing. It was such a different kind of relationship. And I feel like that's gone in a lot of ways. But I think you should just be like many of us in our class who are, I call myself being retired, but I actually am doing other things. But just enjoy, enjoy what you got there. And it sounds like you have, oh, I forgot to ask you how much acreage you have, because that's a thing.
I have 25 acres.
God, I really hate you. I have 12 acres. It was so hard for me to hold on to this too. But yeah, 25. Oh my gosh. And it looks quite lovely there. And it sounds like you just got such a beautiful place set up over there. And you're keeping so busy trying to make it, you know, get all
Yeah,
planted.
it's never ending. You get one project, it's by the time you get to project 10, number one has to be redone again, it seems like, so yeah, no, there's plenty to do, plus I have the other place that I have to maintain too. So, when I bought a boat like what 15 years ago and never used it. So I let my daughter use it, telling her that I was going to repossess it at some point in my, time. Well, took me 15 years, so I just repossessed it, about 6 months ago, but
Yeah.
it's kind of old now. I'm having cushions redone. And so hopefully, yeah, I can use that when I'm down in Hilton Head. So anyway, hopefully we'll see, Hilton Head has like 22 golf courses on the island, on the island or right off the island. So there's lots of golf and tennis. My problem is from 40 years of wrestling the animals, I've jacked one of my wrists up. So, that kind
Oh,
of
the
limits me
golf's
on
not in
that.
your future, but
Maybe
fishing is
not,
wonderful. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
So are you gonna try to come out to our reunion?
I am not going to make it. I had made some other commitments, and
Hmm.
so no, I'm trying. I've got a greenhouse I've got to put up and some raised planting beds, and so yeah, it's not kind of in the cards. So I've
Well,
done
not
some
this,
travel.
yeah, not this time for a 40-year
Not this
reunion.
time.
But you know what? We were talking about maybe doing a little something at the end of the summer, like a meetup someplace.
Gotcha.
And that could be fun too. But we'll put the word out if that's the case. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm the same way. I regret leaving when the weather starts getting nicer and I have, everything everything starts to happen and I like, oh man, I don't want to be gone those couple of days because that's, the my days are counted for sunshine. Yeah, so I hear you, but oh my gosh, a greenhouse and all the good stuff. Sounds like you're going to end up we're going to find you giving tons of vegetables away. You'll have so much produce.
We'll, we'll see how it goes. If the deer don't all eat everything, so that's a common problem. But anyway, so yeah, so no, these are all kind of self-sufficiency type of things. I kind of tell I kind of say I'm a what should I say, a rational prepper. So on
Yeah,
this barn, I wanted
yeah.
to do a solar project because fuel is your biggest the biggest problem because fuel goes bad. So I want to do a solar project. So I thought, well, I don't want to put the panels on the ground. So what the heck? I'll build a barn. So that was kind of the last thing where I didn't think anything was a big deal to start a thing. But so yeah, so I have a 16 kilowatt solar system on the barn that runs in the house. So yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
but then this was my evacuation kennel, that it's illegal to abandon animals in Hilton Head. So, when I bought the property, I went to my accountant and I said, can I write this off as my evacuation kennel? He said, and I sort of laughed, a guilty laugh. He said, if you can say that without laughing, yes, you can. So I'm like,
I never
okay.
heard of that.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So, this was, and it truly was, I had to use it several times when we were evacuated. But anyway, so that was so I was able to, the solar project was a 30% federal tax credit and
Yeah,
25%
saw
state
that.
tax credit. So the government would pay 55% of the installed cost. And then I could depreciate the rest. So it
Yeah.
worked out that, now I have free electricity, and so
Mhm.
that's a good thing. So
I
I have to,
assume you already had the well there.
yeah, I have a couple wells. So one kind of went bad and, then had to drill another one. And the problem is it's on a hill. So my one well's like 1,000 feet deep. It's
Oh
crazy.
my God.
Yeah. So, anyway, that was a bad day because you pay them by the foot when they're drilling the well, and they call me, well, we're at 300 feet, no water. We're at 500 feet, no water. We're at 10. I'm like, no. And then it's like 1,000 feet was like a gallon and a half a minute. I'm like, oh my goodness. So anyway, but yeah, so I got a couple wells, and there's the little creek on one property line. So, it's kind of nice, lots of trees. It kind of made my driveway through a bunch of hardwoods and stuff. So it's real pretty driving up. So, but
Mhm.
it's been, I put a lot of money in this place trying to finish it. So anyway, still got a ways to go, but hopefully I'm getting there.
Yeah, but it sounds like the best project ever. I
Yep.
mean,
No, I enjoy it.
and then you were living in above the clinic, which I imagine was very small square footage. You had like the first tiny home ever, right?
No, it was 2,500 square feet above the clinic. And
Oh,
then
it was the whole area. Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah, and then it was the whole second floor, and then it actually had, they weren't huge bedrooms, but it was 5 bedrooms. So I had 4 kids, so everybody had their own bedrooms, and then we
Mm.
had an area that was connected to the kennel that was rented originally. The guy, my predecessor's wife, started the first Montessori school, so it was a Montessori school, and so we initially rented back to him to pay the bills. And then when that ran out, I ended up converting that to a family area. So, I had a workshop and, I had area for the kids, pool table, all that jazz. So no, I enjoyed it because it seemed like a horrible thing to be above the practice, but it
Oh
was,
no, I wouldn't have
you
thought
know,
it
it
was.
was, it was
I would have been completely relieved that I had a place to live, honestly. Yeah.
yeah, no, I enjoyed that. And then, so anyway, but yeah, so
Hmm.
I'll have some options, so that's nice.
Yeah, so your house that you're at right now, tell me about that one. Or is it just a cabin?
Uh, well, no, I mean it's 4,600 square feet, so
Mhm.
it's
That's
got a
sizable.
walkout. Yeah, no, it's good. The walk and downstairs, have game room and all that stuff, and
Oh,
it has
party at Kirk's house. All right.
six
There we go.
bedrooms,
We're all set. Next
so
reunion's over at your place. Done.
I tried to make it as a kind of a gathering place for my kids and everything else. So that's worked out somewhat that way. Maybe not as much as I'd like it to, but no, it's
Mhm.
worked out for that way. So
Oh,
that's
that's
good.
nice. So at least if you have some type of holidays going on that, people can gather all
Yeah,
for that your place,
we
that's nice.
gather and it's not cramped. Yeah, so it's
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, we're
Works
kind of
out.
set up like a family compound over here, and that actually ensures that I will never be put into an old folks home.
Well, that's the bizarre thing. I'd offered well, not all my kids, but one, my youngest daughter, the veterinarian, I offered him because they work hard and would help me out because I said, look, I'll give you some property, you can build a house, and if you help me maintain things, and then that can allow me to stay longer. I said, and then what will happen is when I die, then you can have it all. And she's like, no thanks. I like Raleigh. And I'm like, what? I would have jumped at something like that. So anyway,
Yeah,
So
it's
I'm no,
interesting. My one,
nobody's
yeah, my
already
my
inherited
daughter's like totally against living in the country here. It's like, you're paying hardly any rent here, same thing, same spiel. And she is like, no, no, we want to go live closer to Seattle. And I'm thinking, you're never going to be able to afford a place there. It's not possible. It's
right.
insane. And even if you think you can afford a place, there's nothing. There's nothing. The whole housing thing right now. And meanwhile, my son's like, this is cool. I hardly have to pay anything. I have all my projects going on here.
There you go.
He's like, no, I'm set. I'm set. It's all good. And I said, Daniel, if anybody gives you grief, what you say to them is, I'm living with you. Yes, I tell the kids, I go, don't say you're living with your mother. That's crazy. Don't do that. Just say, yeah, but we're really great. We let our mom live with us.
There you go. There you go.
It's like, so we'll see. We have these talks here. They're both here with their, it's just, and we have other people living on the property too. It really makes a big difference. It's a great way to live. It really is, because you have more people around to help out, when
Right.
stuff's going on. That makes a big deal. And people contributing. And so it's nice. It's a great security. So I'm with you. I venture to think that it's still possible. They'll see the writing on the wall, you know?
Well, I told my daughter to skip a generation. I've been proposing it to my grandson because I figure
Really?
he'll last longer anyway. So, but I don't want to change their lives. He's got his life ahead of him and what he wants to do. So
How,
we'll
how old's
see.
your how old's your grandson?
Well, that's always a good party trick is when I'd ask people, I'd say, first of all, I'd tell my grandfather, a lot of them would say, really? And then I'd say, so how old do you think my oldest grandson is? So my oldest grandson is 23 and
Ah,
my
I
and my youngest grandson is 17. So
that is a
anyway,
factor. Yeah,
but
it is.
yeah, it was interesting. At age 40, I became a grandfather and got divorced. So it was a banner year.
It was the banner year. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah, my daughter's 25. Yeah, and my son's 30. So, yeah, that's funny. I had my kids older in life, and yours was the opposite way around. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
my
there's
oldest
there's quite a
daughter's
number of our
42.
colleagues who are very, very excited that they have this time now that they could spend with their grandchildren. And it means a lot to them to be able to have that time now where they can enjoy their family and not have to be thinking about being at work and having, and remember, of course, our generation of veterinarians, we had to do emergencies. And so it's just a whole different world now to kind of relax into a kind of family life. So that's pretty spectacular. We got to be grateful for that, right?
Yeah, and just hopefully the health holds out. That's probably the
Oh, right?
future.
That's Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, well, you're going to be eating organic vegetables here soon and fruit. So you're way ahead.
We shall see. We shall see.
Yeah, and fish, right? That's it.
Yep.
So, do you have anything else that you want to share with us? Because now's your chance. Yeah.
Can't think of anything. I mean, I'm grateful for the path. Life is certainly very challenging for everybody. I believe that everyone is taken to their very limits. It's like with my four kids. So the daughters both had teenage pregnancies, and then my oldest son had a motorcycle accident at 18, and he was paralyzed from the chest down. And then he ended up passing away at 32.
Oh, I'm so
And then
sorry.
my youngest son, I thought, okay, four kids, maybe one kid can kind of have a normal progression of life, get an education, meet somebody, get married, have a family. And then what he was 20, bam, cancer, so
Oh,
he
no. Mm,
he had to have chemotherapy, radiation, a lung
Lord.
lobe removed, all before the age of 21, and it's like, oh my goodness, so, but, it makes us stronger, and everybody's taken to their own limits, and so there's certainly things that I would rather go through than other things. So, so
No, you
you
have
put
a
one
very
box on the other.
connected and supportive family, right? I
Well,
mean, you were right there for your kids. That's huge.
so yeah, so we'll see, but yeah, so no, hopefully things are quieting down here, as far as life goes. So we'll see. I'm sure there'll be some new surprises in the future, but I'm grateful for the path that I chose, and
Yeah, veterinary medicine turned out to be a good choice. And then two daughters that you put in, they decided to go that route as well. That's incredible. What a legacy. So yeah, thank you. My goodness, I think you just about beat out Kevin on the time for amount of time on the interview. You had so much to share. I'm talking to people and it's like, why is your interview over in 20 minutes? Surely you have more to talk about. It's like, no, we're good. Yeah, and but thank you. It's just been so much fun, and the best part, don't be a stranger. Reconnect. I'll send you the info for the website and take a look, and hopefully you can send me a nice bit of info for your profile. Just
sure,
answering a couple questions.
sure.
Picture and everybody's sharing these pictures. Boy, I tell you, they're living the life. We have some people showing the biggest fish they ever caught. You know,
Uh,
oh, okay, and stuff like that. So whatever works, right? And we'll keep you posted. I am going to try to do a little bit of possible live streaming during the banquet when Kevin does his deal, because goodness knows what's going to be happening with that.
you never know.
No, never know what Kevin's going to come up with, right? But yeah, so I'll let you know, and we're doing all that stuff too. So like I said, it's been a great interview. Thank you
Well,
so
thanks.
much for being so great about sharing, and I
No
appreciate
problem, and thank you. You have a great day.
it. You bet. You too.
All
Bye.
right, all right. Bye bye.